Hello everybody, MP with Small Field Drafts, ready to do another 3-team best ball fantasy football draft on Underdog. This is going to be the best way to learn how to play best ball on Underdog because it's quick, it's easy, so you can get a high number of drafts in at once. And doing these drafts over and over again is the best way to learn the player pool, learn the players in the ADP, and help you more easily achieve that flow state where you can quickly react to which players you want when you only have 30 seconds on the clock. So in this 3-person draft here, it's the easiest to not mess up your entire team. That's another reason why you should play in these 3-team drafts. Because you're only choosing from the top 50 or 60 players, it's very difficult to choose a player who's not going to perform at least reasonably well. We're back on the clock in the second round. Another reason you should play 3-team best ball is because you can start your drafts Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. Where else in fantasy football land are you going to be able to get away with a start like that? We started with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase after 3 receivers had already been taken. This draft is coming at us fast, and this is why we need to do these drafts constantly, get a lot of volume in so we can react quickly. We have 2 excellent receivers, the top 2. Do we want a running back or do we want to take more receivers? I think we have to fill out our wide receiver room with as many of the top 10 guys as we possibly can. This is another thing. When you're learning 3-team drafts, you need to know what you're playing for. Any best ball, you need to know the reason that you're playing. What is the goal? Our goal is to score the most amount of points cumulatively throughout the season. We have Bijan Robinson falling to us at pick 11. We do have a couple more guys in the top 10 wide receivers here, but getting Bijan Robinson as the number 4 running back off the board, I'll take that in any draft that we can get. This draft is absolutely flying by. I think we have another easy choice in getting Amon-Ra St. Brown. The guy's going to possibly soak up all of the volume and most of the receiving work on a high-powered offense. Tony Pollard as our RB2, another guy who has a chance at getting a top 3 finish, especially with all the free agent running backs signing around the league. Tony Pollard, it's becoming more and more clear that he is going to be a top fantasy option this year. In the 3-team drafts, we have all the quarterbacks available, but even more rare and more valuable is a top-tier tight end, with Mark Andrews at pick 20 over any of the quarterbacks there. That's because we know we can guarantee ourselves one of the top echelon of quarterbacks, whether you consider that to be Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. Hell, even Joe Burrow and Justin Fields can qualify. But there's just not as many tight ends who can score and do for your team what Mark Andrews can do. This draft, it looks like the quarterbacks are getting pushed down the board. We can wait again. We can take another top-tier receiver, or we can go with one of the running backs such as Jonathan Taylor, Ramondre, Josh Jacobs. Jahmyr Gibbs also available. I say we take ourselves another wide receiver. Because in this format, we're starting 3 wide receivers on a weekly basis. We're starting 2 running backs, and we also have a flex spot. Jalen Hurts pairs up nicely with the Devontae Smith that we just took. And we're getting ourselves, in some people's estimations, the quarterback 1 in points per game this year. We're stacking up Philadelphia. So in the cumulative scoring format, that's going to be helpful because we want to make a concentrated bet. If we're going to be right on the Eagles, we want to make sure that's going to pay off for us in a big way. Going back to what I was saying, how this is the most difficult to mess up, oftentimes you can just choose the next best player on the board, and that will be the right choice. We need a 3rd running back. We want a guy who can be number 1 on the week. Jonathan Taylor has proven that he can do that. We don't know that he's healthy. We don't know what his contract situation is, but it's a long season, and it hasn't even begun yet. We don't need the wide receivers here. In my opinion, at this range, all the wide receivers are relatively flat. While there are a few running backs that I would like. Lamar Jackson is still on the table. We're just going to take the top value, the number 1 guy on the board, Ramondre Stevenson. We don't need to get too fancy. Now, when I say it's hard to mess up, it's a double-edged sword. Because when you do mess up, it can be very detrimental. Seeing as there's only 2 other players, if they can capitalize on your mistake, you've hurt yourself in a big way. I am going to say that Haley here hurt themselves by drafting Darren Waller as the overall tight end 3. Now, they took Hawkinson and Darren Waller, so you could say that Darren Waller is going to be tight end 4. But he definitely didn't need to do that. Darren Waller is readily available in the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th round. Definitely after TJ Hawkinson. Definitely after George Kittle, Kyle Pitts, Dallas Goedert. I think we want to prioritize tight end scoring. Tight end scoring is the most volatile. And therefore, we want guys who can spike the highest. Because when they hit big, they're going to make our roster. They have a relatively low projection compared to the receivers and the running backs and obviously the quarterbacks. But when they hit, it's going to do a lot for us. And if we can get a lot of tight ends hitting, one of the best ways to do that is by drafting a lot of tight ends. Don't care too much about Najee Harris. Do we need a running back 5 is a question. These are the things after you've done a number of small field drafts, 3-team drafts, 4-team drafts, 6-team drafts. The only way to get good at best ball is by playing best ball. And the more you play one specific format, the better you're going to be able to achieve this flow state. And you can then craft your edges. You can see the road coming before you, the draft playing out in front of you. You can take detours. Whereas when you first start out, you're kind of flying blind. Not quite sure what we need here. I'm just going to take who I think the best NFL player on the board is. And that's the next guy in the player queue. Deebo Samuel, another guy who can spike in a big way. We are making a concentrated bet, another one with San Francisco. We don't need to worry about the quarterback because we've already got that sewn up with Lamar and Jalen Hurts. We're fading Christian McCaffrey, and instead we're going to say Deebo Samuel and George Kittle are going to do a lot of big things this year. Now, at this point, I am comfortable drafting Najee Harris. You can just see from the player queue here, one of the best things to do in best ball is just take what the board is giving you, and it will show you. Najee Harris was sitting at the top. There was a big block of orange wide receivers here, and then the next running back. That usually indicates a tier break, and we want to take one of the last guys available in the tier. Now, I will not be taking Breece Hall. A lot of these wide receivers are okay. A couple of them can spike for big games. But I like to draft more tight ends. I like to give ourselves more bullets, more opportunities to capture those big spike weeks that are going to be so valuable for our team. When we're fighting against the top players, again, you're only drafting the top 55 players or so. This is our last pick here in the 18th round. We have already got 2 quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson. We've got 5 running backs, 6 wide receivers, and 4 tight ends. So we don't need a tight end. We've covered there, and then some. We don't need a running back. We don't need a wide receiver. Probably in terms of roster construction, receiver is what we need the most. So I'll default to that and take Christian Watson and see if we can't capture some of those spike weeks like we're looking for a tight end, except this time in our receiver queue. I think he probably profiles as the biggest spike player, probably other than someone like Tyler Lockett, I'd say. Another Brandon Ayuk we could have thought about if we really wanted to go heavy in San Francisco. That would have leaned into the correlation quite a lot. We do have Drake London, and that would correlate with Atlanta and Bijan Robinson, but maybe we say Bijan's going to get more points at the detriment of Drake London. And maybe that means Kyle Pitts, who we've got here on our team as well, is going to do better. So we're saying, okay, Bijan and Kyle Pitts are going to be the ones performing for our team and not Drake London. So that's one of the best ways that you can learn how to play best ball. Drafting over and over again. And the format where you can get in the most volume is by going to the draft lobby and look for these 3-person drafts, 4-person drafts, 6-person drafts. You're going to be able to get a high amount of volume in, very quickly learn the player pool and the player ADP, and you'll be able to then achieve that flow state. So you're not worried about rankings, listening to your favorite podcasts, what people are saying about this player or that player, trying to react off the news. Instead, you'll be able to make your own decisions. And that's what you want when you're playing best ball. You want to feel like you're the one in charge. You're the one steering the ship. And after you've done a bunch of these drafts, that's when you can seize your best ball draft by the horns. And it goes for anything. It's not just 3-person drafts. When you draft a bunch of Best Ball Mania, when you draft a bunch of these larger field tournaments or smaller field tournaments, you're going to be more able to see how these drafts should go and which player is the best pick for you. So keep drafting. MP from Small Field Drafts, trying to bring you some good information, some good content. See you next time.